Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5. And I do have to go check this morning because with the bonus beavers, and normally the shows on Fridays end on a 5, and and I can calculate back, but now we're a little all over the place with the numbers. Episode 746 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Do. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording date is Thursday, September 25th, 2025, and it is a gray and rainy day here at the Beaver Lodge. Started last night and actually rained well yesterday a little bit, I think earlier in the day as well, but really started up last night. And yeah, it keeps on going. We didn't get as much rain yesterday during the day as we thought we would, but we got more last night than we expected. So it seems that everything got shifted off a couple of hours. But that's all right, kids and cubs. That's all right. It did allow me to play a little bit of tennis, and it was my second competitive match of the last round, and I am happy to report that I did win that too. So I am 2 wins in a row on the competitive ladder, which is really interesting because before this year, I didn't have a single win ever on the competitive ladder. So yay me. Patting on the shoulder. Patting on the shoulder. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And not with me, as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Misfit Mysteries from Corbin Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Apologies for being a little late starting this morning. For some reason, as you know, sometimes Restream and YouTube have trouble linking up, and that was the case this morning when I was trying to program the show. It wouldn't appear for some reason on the YouTube channel, stating that we were starting. But your queen, nevertheless, nevertheless, persisted. And oh, this is going to come out wrong, but I got it up. Eep. Took a little programming Viagra, I guess. And finally, I got to see it appear on the YouTube page, and then I knew we were good to go with, of course, the logo for our, or the screenshot for our show, because when I just see the Parliament buildings, then that's another sign that it's probably not going to be happening for us. But yeah, I persisted, and thank you, kids and cubs who are watching live, for having decided to stick around to actually catch the show, having confidence that there would indeed be one. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. How is my mental health today, and how is your mental health doing today, kids and cubs? Mine good, considering the circumstances. I am very, very, very tired. It was another late night, unfortunately. This time, whereas the night before I was being a good beaver sweetie, yesterday I was being a good neighbor. Our neighbor came home and realized that he had left his phone on the back seat of the taxi. So as I was doing my research for the show for today, with a later hour than usual, because again I'm trying to be in bed by 10:30, and it was nowhere near that. I will tell you that all the way. The day kind of got away from me. Um, we uh, I helped him basically. I had called the taxi company, and then made sure, of course, that they could get his phone back. And but because they couldn't reach him because they didn't have his phone, of course, they were going to call me back to let me know when they would be able to come, and then I would be able to go knock on his door to let him know that it would be happening. So yeah, I was up much later than I intended it to be last night. I think I got to bed. It was close to 2 a.m. So it was an extremely short night. So hopefully, my good deeds will soon be rewarded with sleep, lots and lots of sleep. Um, but yeah, it's a little foggy in my brain at the moment, and yeah, I could use a good nap. But we'll have a fun show anyway because I'm in good company. But I might not be as quick as I normally am, especially up here. uh, Also happy because yesterday we did have rehearsal. Turns out that one of the people who had got sick with the bug that was going around was our musical director. So, which was one of the reasons why our rehearsal in particular was canceled on Monday, because it happened to be a vocal rehearsal. And given that he was in no state to be there, we decided to just take a night off and, make sure that we had dosed up on our vitamin C and get some rest. But yesterday was a dance night, and it was fun because we got to dance. Not sometimes in the community theater, musical theater, there's minimal dance, but there's lots of formations and movements and stuff like that, which is fun to do anyway. But it's not the same thing as being able to dance. And yesterday we got to dance, which is really nice. And it seems that there's going to be one or two times I'm going to have a small dance feature. So, like I said, the director and the choreographers are really good at giving the ensembles, particularly those who don't particularly have any solo singing or any lines, opportunities to shine, either in some stage action or dance portions. And then of course, where you are in the information. Sometimes if you're in a very specific window, or if you're at the end or the front of the line, you're anchoring a line or something. It lets you know that you're being given some responsibility. So I'm noticing that I'm being given some responsibility on the dance stuff, which is very, very exciting because, every triple threat has a number one, a number two, and number three. And in my case, it's dancing first, acting second, and singing third. I'm the newest to singing. So any opportunities that I have to actually dance make me very, very happy. So I am very, very happy because I got to dance. So winning at tennis, getting to dance, being helpful to neighbors. I'm in a good mood, even though I'm a little tired. In a good mood. And I hope you are too, kids and cubs. All right, let's take a quick little look through the magic monitor here and see who we've got with us. We'll do this a little quickly today, however. We have Kit Saucy with us. We have Kit Lori as well. Good morning to both of you. Kit Miss is here. Good morning to you and to your family. We have Kit Hyper T 007 with us this morning, who had a different bom dia for us. If I can find it here very quickly in the chat. Bom dia todas pessoas. E aí, como estão todos hoje? Hopefully I got it right. There was a couple of phonetic things in there to give me a hand, so hopefully I did it well. You will tell me, of course. We have Kit Swanky Frankie and Kit Grace with us, Kit Uncover with us as well. Good morning to all of you. The Breens are here. Good morning, dear ones. Hope you are feeling fine today. Who else do we have with us? Looking through, we have Kit Kat with us. Hey, hey, hey. And Kit Wishful, good morning to you. Nice to see you. So glad you're here. Kit Argosi Akers is with us. Kit Cassie is with us. Good morning to you and to the cowboy. Kit Linda M, if I haven't mentioned earlier, but I think I did. Kit Mayhem is here, smiling and waving. And going through very quickly. We have Kit Hugh with us and getting some good traction on your first episode of Hugh of the Borg, Kits and Cubs. If you are indeed listening and do not know, our friend Kit Hugh has started his own podcast. It's called Hugh of the Borg. You could find it on his YouTube channel. And also, you can find it on our YouTube channel if you go to the posts section. I included a link there because, when we give birth, we have to announce it to the world. We have Kit Tom with us. Good morning to you, sir. And that is everybody this morning who gets a greeting before we get on with it. Kits and Cubs, in the parliament, we have what the government is doing, but of course, the government is not the sole actor. There are also absolutely also opposition parties who have opportunities to do other things as well. For example, on committees and everything, they can lead questions. Some of the opposition parties actually chair certain committees. Um, there's also private members' bills, and there's a whole process for that. If everybody has one, not all of them get to be tabled. There's a process, a type of lottery or thing like that, decides which one of them get on the order paper to be debated and voted on. But then there are also things that are called opposition days. There are a certain number of days on the calendar that belong to the opposition to either propose topics that everybody will discuss and to usually present motions. Now, as you know, motions as opposed to bills are non-binding. There are certain limits to what they can do. I think I'm not sure if money can be involved in them. I know that in private members' bills, they can't be things that require to spend money, for example, um, or make changes to the budget. Um, so with motions, I'm not particularly sure if that is the case, but they are non-binding. So they are, I mean, for all intents and purposes, if one wants to be cynical, they are virtue signaling or lack of virtue signaling, depending on the content of the motion, as people like to call it. But it's more than that. It gives Canadians an opportunity to see what are the opposition priorities because they did run on things in their campaign and the people that voted for them expect them to fight for those things. And this gives them scheduled opportunities to do that. And so that their constituents can see them fighting for the things that they ran on and that they voted for, even though they didn't get the government that they had hoped for with their votes. And they are important to look at because it's important to see what are the opposition's priorities. Usually, they will present motions on things that that are their priorities. When things are a little less um congenial for all intents and purposes in the House of Commons, they can be used to try to disrupt a familiar tactic and oft used tactic of the Conservative Party, for example, is to present an opposition motion that calls into question the confidence of the House. And then when it gets, if it does get voted for, pretend that the House did vote on a motion of non-confidence against the government, which is not the same thing. They're both motions, but a motion of non-confidence is actually binding, whereas an opposition day motion is not. So when you put you talk about non-confidence in an opposition day motion and it passes, it's not really a vote of non-confidence, but the Conservatives like to do that and then spin it as if there's been a vote of non-confidence in the government, an official one, and then claim that the government is somehow being this, that, and the other thing. Uh, so there are times, and so the Conservative Party in the last parliament, for example, did several of those in a row to try and bring attention to the fact that it wanted the government to fall, but essentially, for all intents and purposes, wasted their opposition days in that sense in order to do a media stunt, which also does happen. So in this case, it's interesting that a lot of the opposition days came early. There is a little bit of negotiation between the House leader and the House leaders of the other parties in order to form the calendar. Um, so there is in a minority parliament. So it seems there was some agreement for some of the opposition parties to have their opposition days this early in the calendar before a lot of things could get heated up. So um, they're pretty much wasted in the sense that, if there's anything really antagonistic against the government, um, in terms of wanting to take them down so early in a session, it wouldn't happen usually because, parliamentarians do usually try to make the House work so soon after a federal election, at least for the first while before they start getting itchy to wanting to go into an election again, particularly in a minority parliament. Um, and of course, there are certain realities. For example, the NDP has a fundraising situation and is in a party leadership race. The Conservative Party has a party leader review. Not sure that Pierre Poilievre would particularly want to go to an election now, as polls are indicating that the party wouldn't do as well this time around as it just did right before going to a leadership review. Right? If we had another election before the scheduled leadership review, for him to delay it and were the Conservatives to lose it again, and the Conservatives emerge from that snap election with fewer seats, Pierre's career would probably be instantly over. And since he is going to, you're going to get the public teat away from him, from his cold, dead hands. There will be nail marks in the floorboards to get him out of Parliament in any way, shape, or form. Considering we've already seen what he's done once he was ejected the first time. Right? Um, I don't think Pierre is going to set himself up anytime soon to get himself off public housing. The best public housing taxpayer money could buy, by the way. Um, so yeah, not thinking that's going to happen soon. And the Bloc Québécois is on record, although the Bloc Québécois can choose to be fickle, but is on record as saying that it would give the current government until about the midterms. We'll see if that happens. But the Bloc Québécois as well, little happy. They're the happiest of all the parties at the moment, in the sense that they've got a provincial election coming up next year, and they're pretty sure that the Parti Québécois is going to win, and it's going to be some type of love-in and that type of stuff. And I'm sure there is nothing better that the leader of the Bloc Québécois would love is to have the easiest job in Parliament, basically saying, "Oh yeah, what the Assemblée nationale said, we say that too. How do you feel about that, Parliament?" And vote on that. Um, Especially if they have the opportunity to do it with a Parti Québécois provincial government at the same time. That's the kind of thing that make Bloc MPs' nipples get hard. So Blanchette is in a good position, the best position of all at the moment, and you know. Maybe doesn't want to disrupt that, especially if Carney is still riding high in the polls in the province of Quebec, which he is still at the moment. So not much real opportunity for these parties to smartly make a pitch to go to a snap election. Let's put it that way. So I don't think that that's on the menu at the moment. It does create a very interesting situation to see who's going to vote for the budget when it comes on around November 4th, because the prime minister actively says that there are going to be some austerity measures in there, which probably won't please the NDP and probably won't please the Bloc Québécois. Probably will make the Conservatives happy, but they'll probably complain that it's not enough. Um, so you know, uh, every one of these parties does have a reason to vote against it. The Major Projects Office, which probably would, uh, again, the Conservatives saying not enough, but probably something that the Conservatives would vote against. Quebec, is the Port of Montreal thing and the high speed rail thing enough to keep the Bloc Québécois happy for this time? Perhaps. Is the idea of twinning LNG uh, up in the northern British Columbia, something that turns off the NDP enough to get them to vote against, right? The Green will vote against it, that's for sure. Um, because the budget doesn't do anything to get us on the track that we need to fight climate change in a serious manner. So the Greens is almost always a no vote on the budget for that principal purpose. Um, but yeah, it kind of makes it interesting to see which party is going to compromise or fold itself in some way and what rationale they're going to use to support a budget that they might usually not support. But again, given that we're so close to a federal election already, and two of the three other parties are not particularly in the best position to be going now or to have a vested interest and maybe not going right now. Um, but we'll take a look at those the three of the four opposition motions that have already been voted on. I talked about them a little bit yesterday, about one of them anyway. And the first one was a conservative one. It's opposition motion. Was the vote number 35 from the 45th Parliament for session. It was tabled by Larry Brock, or as I like to call him, Larry Kroc. And if that name sounds familiar, well, we just talked about him the other day because Larry Brock was the first of the four people that showed up at that Justice Committee meeting a day or two early, couldn't read a calendar. Said, well, the last session it was always this date. It's not this day, so we showed up for a meeting and tried to spin it as a we want to work on justice issues, but nobody else showed up. Uh, Nobody else showed up because there wasn't a meeting. And because there wasn't a meeting, and everybody knew there wasn't a meeting, except for the conservatives, allegedly, I'm going to assume that they did read the calendar and showed up anyway and pulled a stunt. I know, shocking that I would suggest that the Conservative Party of Canada was intentionally duplicitous and deceptive. Maybe we need a law. Sign the petition E-6679, rcommons.ca. But yes, Mr. Larry Kroc of Meep decided to propose this motion. Uh, it reads opposition motion, in parentheses, violent crime and repeat offenders. Motion text that given that the Liberal government has changed the law to allow for house arrest for serious offenders and lets repeat criminals go free within hours of their arrest, which has resulted in a 50% increase in violent crime, the House call on the Liberal government to replace these changes with a quote, three strikes and you're out, quote, law that will stop criminals convicted for three serious offenses from getting bail, probation, parole, or house arrest, and keep violent criminals in jail for at least 10 years. Now, I do not have the facts handy on my fingertips, but I would love to have a fact check on the claim that the Liberal government has changed the law to allow house arrest for serious offenders. I would guess here that the conservative definition of what is serious offenders is probably different than the legal standing for the purposes of this motion. Um, which has resulted in that letting repeat criminals, I'm guessing it would be repeat petty criminals, uh, petty crime for all intents and purposes, and not necessarily violent crime, which has resulted in a 50% increase in violent crime. I would love a fact check on whether or not violent crime has actually increased 50%. Of course, they don't say 50 increased 15%, 50% since when. There's no marker. Like, it increased 50% in 3 months, in 1 year, in 20 years? How? When? So I would like a fact check on that as well, and I would also like to remind uh, Mr. Kroc that causation correlation is not causation. Just because, you know, uh, you happen to be in you happen to be in government when bad things happen doesn't necessarily mean that it's your government that caused it. You still got to deal with it, but it doesn't mean you caused it. Conservatives love to do that. Well, this terrible thing happened when you were in government, so it must be your fault. Then this motion calls on the Liberal government to replace these changes with a 3 strikes and you are out law that will stop criminals allegedly convicted of 3 serious offenses from getting bail, promotion, parole, house, and keep violent criminals in jail for at least 10 years. Um, a 3 strikes, 3 strikes and you're out, along with the mandatory minimum provision there. Two concepts that have already been tried and tested again and again and again and again and again in Canadian courts, and for the most part have pretty much consistently been deemed unconstitutional. And the Conservative Party of Canada should be particularly attuned to this reality because, well, when the Conservative Party of Canada last formed the federal government, well, uh, being tough on crime was one of their big things. They were all in on being tough on crime. And they passed several laws with mandatory minimums. And things like 3 strikes and you're out and mandatory minimums have routinely been deemed by the courts to be unconstitutional. So the Conservative Party of Canada, currently being led by its recycled leader of the allegedly loyal official opposition, decided that it has so little to offer to the Canadian public that it would resort to recycling proposals on law and order and criminality that they've already proposed, have already been through the courts, and have already been rejected. While labeling the Liberals not only as being soft on crime, but as being pro-crime. Yes, because we as Canadians are supposed to seriously believe. We're supposed to seriously believe that we have a political party that is pro-crime, that wants more crime. It's ridiculous on its face. Now, interestingly enough, that question could actually be asked of the Conservative Party of Canada, because if you allege you are tough on crime, but all of the laws that you propose to deal with that crime, to deal toughly with that crime, are laws that are unconstitutional. One of the hallmarks of the Stephen Harper government, you have all these conservatives all over online that like to say the Trudeau government was the worst government ever in Canadian history. And I'm sorry, people who love to live in an alternative reality, but that's just objectively not true, because the government immediately preceding the Justin Trudeau government, one, pleaded guilty in court after the first election that it won to have committed financial cheating during the election that allowed them to win, and needed to plead guilty to save 4 of their own, including 2 sitting senators, from a potential jail sentence. Then the party was held in contempt of Parliament, was the first government in all of the Commonwealth to be held in contempt of Parliament by their own Parliament, and then had a cabinet minister go to jail. I think by any objective standard, that government was worse. Then layer on top of that, that the government was pretty much the most overturned by the courts government in Canadian history. So what that means is that that particular government repeatedly, as a matter of habit, tried to find ways to illegally attack fundamental human rights and kept on being rejected and turned down by the courts, saying, you can't do that. No, you cannot break the law in the process of making new law. Your law does not stand. Now, if you are tough on crime, but you keep on passing laws that are unconstitutional and that are not going to survive, and you knowingly do that, and after having 10 years of experience doing that and being overturned, you come back 10 years later and you say, hey, let's do that thing that didn't work the first time again, it kind of makes me wonder if you're not the party that's pro crime. Because if all your solutions generate public outrage and raise big fundraising dollars for you, and then more fundraising dollars when you're overturned by the courts, as you know you will be, and then you take that overturning and you say, these judges are activists, we got to change our judges or the way that we appoint them, and go and raise more money off of that. Um, are you really? Are you really law and order? Or are you the pro crime party? Because you're not actually doing anything that will either stop it or deter it. A law that is no good is as good as no law. Just saying. So we had a vote on that. And the motion was defeated. In fact, only the Conservatives voted for their own motion. Every other party, Liberals, the Bloc, or the Green Party, or the NDP, didn't see any value in wanting to pass this motion from the Conservatives. Stupid motion. It's been tried before. It failed. And all the Conservatives have to offer you is a recycled motion that already failed over a decade ago. They're hoping you don't remember that they've tried this before. But they have. Didn't work. And there's been no seismic shift to our legal framework that would give anybody the impression that it would work again, but they tabled this motion and they spent an entire day of your money in the House debating it and voting on it. The lights, electricity, heat, photocopies, salaries and benefits for everybody that was in there, either as an MP or a support staff, all of that to debate a motion that had content that has already been passed through the courts and has failed. Also, they can get a PR hit to run around, especially Andrew Lawton, who's a journalist and therefore should know better, claiming that, oh my God, the Liberals again voted against our bill. They don't want to stop crime. They're so pro crime. But the Minister of Justice, we showed you, just announced a few days before that they had a whole suite of legislation, even a couple of days before this motion was debated, introduced the first one on hate crimes. But the Conservatives, no. Government, we know that you have a bill, but let us preempt your bill with ours. Even though you ran on this stuff, never mind what the Canadians voted for, put ours in place instead. That contains stuff that we know doesn't work and has already been overturned by the courts. Let's be tough on crime that way. This is not a serious party. Not led by serious men. Oh, by the way, let us remind ourselves again that the man currently leading the party has a lifetime compliance agreement with Elections Canada because he too was found to be a cheater. And that lifetime compliance agreement is a fancy term for deferred prosecution agreement. So not only has the party pleaded guilty in court, not only has the party had a cabinet minister go to jail, but the current leader of the party has a deferred prosecution agreement. Which means that he probably would have been taken to court for the cheating that he did. And I guess Pierre didn't feel confident that he was going to win that case because he signed it. He said, yes, I will be a good boy henceforth. Please don't send me to court. So it's very likely to assume that the leader of the party would have a criminal record today. The party of alleged law and order is being led by a man who would have a criminal record today had he not been offered the grace of a deferred prosecution agreement for all things election cheating. But he wants to be prime minister and he thinks his party should govern. Mm-hmm. Okay. The second of these opposition day motions that were tabled so that the people that we elected to represent us could pronounce themselves on it also came from the Conservative Party of Canada. This one from the, it says here, honorable. Hold on, I need some tea. It's water, but let's say it's tea. By the allegedly honorable Andrew Scheer. Opposition motion, in parentheses, oil and gas emissions cap. Vote number 37. And we'll start right here by, of course, fact checking. There is no oil and gas emissions. Well, sorry, emissions cap. In the law, they actually referred to it as an emissions cap and not a production cap or an energy cap. So it seems that the conservatives here are telling us that they know it's an emissions cap, but when they talk to us in front of the camera, they pretend they don't. But when they pass the motion, in the motion text, they write emissions cap. It's funny how they can write it, that they just can't say it. Anyway, the motion text, very simple, not even 2 full lines. That the House call on Prime Minister to immediately repeal the oil and gas emissions cap, which in effect is a production cap. Ah, there you go. There you go. Ah, they know it is an emissions cap because they can say it when they write a law, but even in the motion, they put a lie. The emissions cap is only a production cap if you choose to do nothing about your emissions. The more you do about your emissions, the more you can produce. It's not a production cap. It's a cap on don't be so fucking lazy. It's a cap on a free ride. It's a cap on a free pass to keep on doing what you were doing the whole time without having to pitch in to the effort. But it's not a production cap. So another bill with another lie included in it. God, I hope everybody signs that petition. And, well, let's take a look at how that one went for the Conservatives. We come down to the vote by political affiliation, and that one lost 191 to 140. And once again, only the Conservatives voted for it. Interesting how the Conservatives keep on going in front of the cameras and the microphone saying, we were right about everything. We were right about everything. Tell the government not to implement its platform that it won on, but the government needs to implement our platform instead, which lost, which Canadians rejected. Supplant your agenda for ours. We will work with anybody who's willing to put our platform that was rejected in place rather than the one that people voted for. Pierre, uncomfortable, creepy Pierre smile. Again, not a serious party. And proposing things twice now, so far, in 2 days, that no other party can support. Yeah. And then they take those negative votes and they go, oh my God, the Liberals killed it, when it was all parties. But of course, that wouldn't help the Conservatives in their vilification model, wouldn't help the 24/7 rage machine to say, oh, our ideas were so bad, nobody else would support them. It's the Liberals who voted against it. So did the Bloc, the NDP, and the Greens. It's the Liberals who voted against it. Why are we so persecuted? Yes, yes. Absolutely do not tell Canadians that every party, without exception, voted against your motion because it was dumb. Just pretend it's a liberal thing. Everybody was on board except the liberals. Oh, those darn liberals. Always stealing our great ideas. Boy. Okay. The third one of these votes that happened. This one, as we mentioned yesterday, was one from the Bloc. The Bloc had their opposition days, so 3 opposition days. And this one was by Réal Éloi Fortin, the sponsor, um, who is the justice critic for the Bloc Québécois. And this one was vote number 38, opposition motion, in parentheses, constitutional powers of Quebec and the provinces. And this motion text is actually a little more serious in terms of the content and the way that it is framed, but still. Motion text that the House A. Call on the government to fully withdraw from the legal challenge of Quebec's act respecting the laicity of the state before the Supreme Court. Um, Never going to happen. You can't ask seriously the federal government to withdraw from a legal challenge on a case that is so blatantly about suppressing the most fundamental and inalienable, supposed to be inalienable human rights that we have agreed as a country we would uphold not only in our own charter, but by signing an international treaty on human rights. Not only did we swear it to our people, we swore to the entire world we would uphold this inalienable right. And the Bloc Québécois is saying, well, yes, our provinces are challenging that inalienable right, and the federal government should just really not get involved. Just let us do it. Lay back and take it. Yeah, probably not going to happen. Slightly unrealistic expectation here, because it's the duty of the federal government to uphold those rights. Sworn oath. That the House B call on the government to withdraw its factum filed on September 17th, 2025, with the Supreme Court contesting Quebec's right to invoke the notwithstanding clause, and C denounce the government's willingness to use the Supreme Court to take constitutional powers away from Quebec and the provinces who are trying to use the Supreme Court to take constitutional powers away, or constitutional rights away from citizens. My editorial addition there on that one. Yes, it's a terrible thing that the federal government would want to use the Supreme Court to take constitutional powers away from Quebec and the provinces. But it's not a terrible thing that Quebec and the provinces would want to use the Supreme Court to take fundamental rights away from Quebec and, well, citizens of Quebec and the provinces. That's okay, though. And the federal government should play no role, should withdraw from the legal challenge, should withdraw its court filings, and the government should denounce itself for being willing to go to court to stand up for inalienable, allegedly supposed to be inalienable human rights. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Don't think that's going to happen. However, virtue signaling, right? To the nationalist and especially ethno-cultural warrior segment of the Quebec population. Well, this one was a closer vote. 159 voted yay, 170 voted nay. And on this one, I have to say that the vote was a little more interesting because it was close for a reason, kids and cubs. And the reason for that is that unlike the Conservative Party motions that didn't get support from other parties, the Bloc's motion did get support from another party. If you will see here, the Conservatives, 137 of them voted yay, the 22 Bloc voted yay. Huh. How unsurprising that both of Canada's federal separatist parties, because I think it's safe to say that the Conservative Party of Canada is a separatist party now, considering it has not uh, denounced in any way what is going on in Alberta and definitely wants the votes of Alberta separatists, courts their votes constantly. So, yes, if we are doing this as Pierre Poilievre would do it, if the shoe was on the other foot, we would have to say Canada's two federal separatist parties, the Conservative Party of Canada and Bloc Québécois coalition, the unholy CPC Bloc Québécois alliance, voted together yesterday to demand that the federal government sit passively by and do nothing when provincial premiers wish to take away fundamental human rights that are supposed to be unalienable. I guess it is consistent. I mean, Pierre Poilievre did run on preemptively using the notwithstanding clause to suspend rights. So, yeah, amazing how the two federal parties that are pro using the notwithstanding clause to take away your fundamental rights, decided to join forces and vote together on this. Fortunately, everybody else thought that this was a really dangerous and stupid idea, and it got voted down, thankfully. Now, on the first one, by the way, of those votes with regard to mandatory minimums and that type of stuff, Ontario Premier Doug Ford also decided to want to do every job but his own as provincial premier and stick his nose into a federal issue. According to Julia Alivato on September 22nd from CBC, the Ontario government has outlined a series of measures it wants to see from the federal government's upcoming legislation meant to tighten bail reform and sentencing rules. A joint letter sent Monday by the province's Solicitor General and Attorney General is recommending a list of proposals for the federal government to increase public safety. The list includes restoring mandatory minimum sentencing for serious crimes and removing bail availability for offenders charged with murder, terrorism, human trafficking, intimate partner violence, drug trafficking, criminal possession or use of restricted prohibited firearms, and violent carjackings and home invasions. And while this sounds that would be imminently marketable, and it is, we have to remember again that everybody is entitled to at least a bail hearing, even the most heinous of people like Paul Bernardo. Yes, everybody is legally entitled to a bail hearing because our justice system works on the principle of not only punishment but rehabilitation. And we assume at the start that everyone can potentially be rehabilitated because our justice system doesn't work on a lock them up and throw away the key forever. And of course, our justice system also very much prizes judicial discretion. We choose judges because they are wise and have the capacity to sift through very complicated things in a dispassionate way and come up with a decision, a ruling, or a verdict that we trust. So when you start with the principle that you are prohibited, that bail is not going to be available to you, that parole is not going to be available to you in any way, shape, or form, you are betraying a basic and most fundamental tenet of our justice system. Judicial discretion in the fact that everyone is at first, until they prove otherwise, a candidate for rehabilitation. These are the things that Conservative Party, whether it's federal or provincial in the case of Doug Ford, tend to want to deny. Quote, "It's critical that federal legislation meets the standards Canadians expect, cracking down on crime and keeping violent repeat offenders behind bars where they belong," the letter reads. Monday's letter is the latest volley in Premier Doug Ford's ongoing push for Ottawa to legislate stricter bail measures in the wake of several high-profile instances of crime allegedly committed by offenders out on bail, including a 12-year-old boy who was charged with attempted murder connected to a shooting in Markham earlier this month. I'm sure that 12-year-old boy had a rap sheet for violent crime as long as my arm. Ford said in a social media post Monday that his government wrote the letter to the federal government to lay out Ontario's, quote, expectation for tough bail reform that keeps criminals behind bars and keeps our streets safe. Solicitor General Michael Kersner also commented on the anticipated legislation Monday, saying in a social media post that strong and meaningful bail reform is needed immediately. Canada's broken federal bail system continues to allow violent repeat offenders back onto our streets, Kersner said in the post on X. Of course, this would probably be the time to point out that the provincial government has not been doing its part in ensuring that there are enough judges, that cases can be heard quickly enough, and that there is enough space in the incarceration system to hold people in manners that are humane. And there doesn't seem to be much plan on the part of the provincial government to address those issues. So, turning the spotlight onto the federal government, saying your bail is not tough enough. Well, even if the bail was tough enough, if we did change the law, where would you put them, Doug? Because you haven't done your part. One of the reasons that some of the cases are not being tried and people are being released is because there's even more dangerous people already in the cell. And you haven't done what was needed to be done for your policy, if it was made law, to actually be implemented. So perhaps, Doug Ford, you would want to stop doing everybody's job but your own and start doing your own. If you want the possibility of such a law, you have to create the conditions for that law to actually be enforceable if it was passed. And you haven't, and you won't. So, not sure why you're intervening. I guess you have something to deflect about. That's the only thing I can do. I'm confident that hopefully the new prime minister, unlike the previous prime minister who didn't want to do anything, the new prime minister, I have confidence that he believes in keeping communities safe, which I know he believes in that. Wow. I have confidence that he believes in the thing I know he believes in. Oh boy, Doug Ford. Gee. Ugh. The letter also recommends the requirement of ankle monitors as a condition of bail for serious crimes and a three strikes rule denying bail for repeat offenders, something the federal conservatives have also been demanding for people convicted of multiple serious offenses. There's Doug Ford trying to do every job but being the premier of Ontario. Always sticking his nose. And Doug Ford's this is the second Doug Ford thing, which is really interesting in terms of what he believes, because Doug Ford also hilariously a few weeks ago suggested that his fever dream for having that tunnel under the 401 is a project of national importance that should somehow make the list, and again expressed great confidence that the prime minister would make that happen for him. And I'm thinking, dude, you I don't know if you've been hanging around the same basements that your brother formerly was, but that's not happening. That's not happening, buddy. The tunnel under the 401 that will get people to their destination, was it 13 seconds? Or a minute and a half or something faster than they would have otherwise, is nowhere near a project of national importance. And I have no idea where your belief is that the prime minister will come through for you on that is. So I'm thinking that Doug Ford might be putting a couple balls in the air, saying, like, I really believe the prime minister, so that he can turn around and later claim that he's disappointed somehow. But these are not realistic expectations in any shape or form. It's just silliness. Um, Speaking of law and order, however, Uh, there was a hate crimes bill introduced by the Minister of Justice, Sean Fraser, according to the Canadian press. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association is concerned about it. It says that the Liberal government's new hate crimes bill runs the risk of criminalizing peaceful protest. The bill introduced Friday would create new crimes of obstruction and intimidation aimed at protecting places of worship and institutions, including schools, daycares, and seniors' residences used by an identifiable group. So, for example, if you had a specifically if there was a senior residence that was specifically um, catering to the Jewish community, and it was obvious in the way that it advertised itself or in the name of the institution or that type of thing, for example. Quote, the new intimidation offense is far broader than existing prohibitions could criminalize peaceful protests. Let's try and read that again because I think my pacing on that was weird. The new intimidation offense is far broader than existing prohibitions and could criminalize peaceful protests simply because they are seen as disruptive, said Anaïs Bussière-McNichol, director of the group's Fundamental Freedoms program, in a news release Monday. The maximum penalty under the new legislation would be 10 years in prison. Bussière-McNichol said that penalty, quote, is very severe and could push activists into silence. The civil liberties group said the bill could affect tens of thousands of community spaces across the country. It added police can protect public safety using existing laws on mischief, intimidation, threats, and harassment. The bill would not create, quote, bubble zones to prohibit protesters around designated buildings. Such zones would have to be ordered by provinces or municipalities. Justice Minister Sean Fraser told reporters Friday the bill, quote, goes to great lengths to specifically protect the ability of Canadians to take part in peaceful protests. The bill also would make it a criminal offense to willfully promote hate through the use of hate symbols and create a new category of hate crime, which would be layered on top of existing offenses. So that's the basic portion of it as reported by the Canadian press. According to the Government of Canada, they say there is a horrifying rise in hate crimes in our communities, and Canada will not tolerate anyone being made to feel afraid because of who they are, how they worship, or where they gather. Rising anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, homophobia, and transphobia have left too many people feeling unsafe in their own communities. To address this rise in hate, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada and Minister responsible for the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, the Honourable Sean Fraser, today introduced the Combating Hate Act. The legislation would amend the Criminal Code to 1. Make it a crime to intimidate and obstruct people from accessing places of worship, as well as schools, community centers, and other places primarily used by an identifiable group. Make hate-motivated crime a specific offense, ensuring such conduct is more clearly denounced and that offenders are held accountable, and make it a crime to willfully promote hatred against an identifiable group by displaying certain terrorism or hate symbols in public. The proposed changes respect Canadians' charter freedoms of expression and peaceful assembly and would not unreasonably impact the freedom to protest or voice concerns peacefully. It targets criminal behavior that intimidates or obstructs access to community spaces, making clear where the line is drawn. In addition, changes to the criminal code would codify a definition of hatred to clarify when conduct constitutes a hate crime. Finally, the law would streamline the process to lay hate propaganda charges by removing the requirement to obtain the Attorney General's consent. By removing this step, law enforcement would be able to act quickly to counter hate speech and protect communities. A strong Canada means strong protections for our communities and a criminal code that responds to emerging threats, protects victims of crime, and keeps our kids safe. This is the next in a series of crime and justice reforms the Government of Canada will bring forward in the weeks and months ahead to strengthen community safety and Canada's justice system. And quoted here from the Honourable Sean Fraser says, Canadians deserve to live freely in their communities, regardless of the color of their skin, the God they pray to, or the person they love. Sadly, incidents of hate against entire communities have taken these freedoms from too many of our neighbors. The legislation strengthens protections against hate so Canadians of all races and ethnicities, faiths, sexualities, and genders can feel safe in their communities and be free to celebrate their identities. And in the quick facts supporting this proposed legislation, it says that the number of police reported hate crimes increased in 2024 as compared to the previous year. Of these hate crimes, most targeted race or ethnicity and religion. Most police reported hate crimes targeting religion were directed towards Jewish and Muslim populations, and disproportionately 68% towards Jewish communities and 17% towards Muslim populations. Since 2020, Black people have been the most frequently targeted population as victims of hate crimes motivated by race or ethnicity, accounting for 37% of these hate crimes in 2024. Whew. Wow. The criminal code currently contains 4 hate propaganda offenses, most of which require the Attorney General's consent before charges can be laid. The bill would remove the requirement for all existing hate propaganda offenses, allowing police to act more quickly, and create a new 5th offense for displaying certain terrorism and hate symbols. And there you go. That's everything that the government of Canada had in its statement regarding this particular piece of legislation. Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see what becomes of it. This is legislation that I think that the Bloc Québécois, NDP, and Greens could probably all support, and I have a feeling that the Conservatives will not support it, and they will claim because it's insufficient or doesn't go far enough or whatnot. But as we know, Conservatives traditionally break out into hives when you talk about hate crimes legislation and hate speech. They don't like to admit that that it's actually a thing. Let's put it that way. So, but this is the type of legislation, if well written, of course, because the devil is in the details, that could indeed create some amity and consensus among uh, various other parties in the House of Commons. It seems that let's see if there's a fourth. I believe there is a fourth opposition day motion that is about to be tabled, and I believe it is today. Uh, let's see here. Yes, it is. According to iPolitics, um, for the second time this week, the Conservatives will get the chance to trigger a full day of debate and ultimately a vote on what their party will frame as a yet another failure on the part of Prime Minister Mark Carney to live up to his campaign commitments, and more specifically, his pledge that Canadians would judge him by the cost at the grocery store. The non-binding motion, which stands in the name of the party's agriculture critic John Barlow, points to what it contends is a 40% jump in food prices since Liberals took power. Again, here, since Liberals took power, so at least they have a date, as well as a reported increase in visits to food banks, and challenges the House of Commons to call on the government to, quote, stop taxing food by eliminating the industrial carbon tax on fertilizer and farm equipment, as well as what it calls the inflation tax of money printing deficits, as well as the so-called clean fuel standard and the food packaging tax. Basically, the Conservatives taking a lot of their previous asks, bundling it, uh, making a relation to food, no matter how tenuous it could potentially be, and claiming that all of these things are taxes. And if you just axed the taxes, the price of food would go down, because we've just had a stellar example of that. Oh, sorry. Was it time for more tea? Yes, we just saw stellar example of that, where the leader of the recycled leader of the Conservative Party of Canada screamed for the better part of 2 years that all we need to do is axe the tax, and that your life would be affordable. And then we axe the tax, and as Vashi Capellos so astutely pointed out in that horrible interview that Pierre Polyev gave to CTV Question Period, when she asked him, even when she's basically pointed out that even in month one of the carbon tax being axed, even though it had an impact on overall inflation, food inflation still went up regardless, almost as if axing the tax would have done nothing for food inflation, because the impact of carbon regulatory pricing for the consumer had the impact on food prices was negligible, as everyone who was an expert was telling us. But Conservatives don't believe in experts unless it's the food professor, allegedly. Um, but yes, um, yeah, cutting the carbon tax did not decrease food inflation or the price of food. But the conservatives are saying, well, if you cut these taxes, so just don't have an industrial carbon tax on fertilizer and farm equipment. Don't borrow any money to do anything at all, like improve our ports so that we could get our grain out to other markets. Don't spend money on that. That taxes food. Don't have a clean fuel It's amazing how it's environmental protections that keep on need to be cut in order to uh, they are basically proposing two cutting back on two other environmental protections in order to lower the price of food when the first one that they promised would lower the price of food was cut and didn't. And then the food packaging tax, that's a new one for me. I have no idea what they're talking about when they say the food packaging tax. I don't. I'm going to have to find out what they mean about that. The debate is set to get underway this morning with the vote likely to take place early next week. I have a feeling that that's another one that's going to fail. I'm not sure you're going to get the NDP and the Bloc Québécois to vote for motions that reduce environmental protections, or the Green Party, for that matter. So this might be a third conservative motion, 3 for 3, that no other party in the House of Commons can support. Conservatives are really good at playing well with others, aren't they? It's like an election didn't even happen. I know we had well, I guess I can imagine why Pierre would want to pretend that the election never happened. Oh, man. Yikes. That was that was a little mean. Beaver got claws. That was a little mean. That was but it felt so good. I'm a petty little beaver. I'm a petty little beaver. I gotta admit. Ah, man. Oh, I would just, like, slipped out too. I wasn't even planning. I just, rolled my eyes and a little acid came out. A little reflux moment. Oh, boy. Yeah, seeing some, comments here in the chat there. This is the party of fear-mongering. Sure is. Absolutely. Kitland M here. The election happened. The Conservatives just decided not to learn anything from it. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. You nailed that, Kitlinda. I think that that's absolutely correct. Let's see what else do we have here. Absolutely. Yep. Christian, nothing is getting cheaper and it's not going to. Deflation is a bad economic standard. Absolutely. I agree. Kit PNC Bio, nothing ever gets cheaper. This is not how inflation works. If everything started suddenly getting cheaper, start to worry. Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Uh, And then, yeah, Kitlinda. Meanwhile, we have Quebec getting rid of gender neutral language in official communications because Legault needs some fear mongering to keep his job. Absolutely, Kitlinda. You are definitely on track there. Yep. Uh, a new thing that the government of Quebec is doing, and precisely for the reasons that Linda is stating. And once again, unfortunately, it would seem that we have an ideological conservative leader who is in trouble, does not look like he will get reelected. And rather than make the decision to either bow out gracefully or hold a step aside so that there could be a leadership, another leadership contest, for example, um, or do any other thing, change his platform in a more positive way. Um, well, he decides instead to borrow a page from Blaine Higgs, resort to his worst instincts, and make an appeal to hate by throwing the most vulnerable under the bus. Sorry, under the bus. I had a little burp there. Um, Now, it's as what's been proposed in Saskatchewan, Alberta, and New Brunswick in terms of affecting kids in school or having to sign a form saying, yes, I am a girl, so I can participate in sports. According to CTV, and this is Erica Morris, Quebec is banning the use of gender neutral inclusive language in all official communications. French language minister Jean-François Roberge will present legislation at the National Assembly to this effect Wednesday. He said newly emerging gender neutral words, which are often used by transgender non binary people, create incoherence in Quebec's official language. Because nouns are gendered, Roberge rules also prohibit writing in a way that neutralizes them. Newer neutral pronouns like yel, which is used similarly to they in English, won't be allowed either. In French, because we have genders, right? We have, for example, third person singular in English, he, she, and it. There's il, elle, et on in French. When some transgender people prefer they rather than him or her, she or he. They prefer they or them. In French, they or them was made by taking il and elle, taking the first letter of il and the first two letters of elle, putting them together and saying yel. The problem is here, according to the government of Quebec, is because adjectives, for example, and verbs, if they're in a, oh God, I'm going to have to think in French. Um, oh, Verbs, depending on the type of verb, the conjugation, uh, when you're spelling, they accord themselves in gender and in number with the subject to which they refer. So, um, uh, if you could say, il est heureux, he is happy, and it would be elle est heureuse, right? So adjectives change. If you have what's called a past participle, um, uh, the apples that I ate, les pommes que j'ai mangées, manger would be e accent aigu, es at the end because apples is a feminine word. So when you're using the claim is that when you are using a gender neutral pronoun, because you do not know what gender it doesn't really affect number, but in terms of gender, how to accord the adjectives or how to put the ending of a verb that would be a participle that would be affected by the subject of the verb, um, that it creates a situation that is incoherent. Other gender neutral alternatives to names, pronouns like celu, which are those. So celle, like an e. It's combination of cell and e together. So celle, or mix, mix or mx dot as an identifier instead of mademoiselle or monsieur, mix, or frère, which is a combination of frère et sœur, which in to say sibling instead. My siblings, mes frères, everyone, will also be out of use. Quote, it is what it is, so we have to be sure that our grammar is applied and that new words are not incompatible with the grammar, Roberge told journalists at a news scrum. Quebec's French language watchdog, the OQLF, the official, I think that's the Office of Quebec, I don't Office Québec de la langue française, I would assume here, because it's not written previously in the article what it stands for. It provides guidelines on gender-neutral writing, which Roberge said the government will follow. On its Quebec, the OQLF says gender-neutral language allows women and men to be represented in a balanced manner or to refer to people regardless of their gender, rather than default to the masculine form. The watchdog favors the use of doublets, lecteur et lectrice, neutral designations, researchers, resource person, readership, and various strategies for creating inclusive sentences. So you will often hear that in French, mesdames, as we say in English, like ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, but they will do it for everything. So we would say in English, the writers, I guess, and in French we go les écrivaines et écrivains, right? So female writers and male writers. So it makes sentences longer and all that kind of stuff. But usually um, it's done through doublets, for example, or if you can use a neutral designation. So, uh, researchers, personne ressource, or as for resource person, there's no masculine or feminine, and it is sort of like a neutral designation. It's not uh, so as opposed to gender inclusive terms that remove anything that could be gender specific, so it could be used universally for all genders. Roberge's new rules restrict the use of abbreviated doublets, only allowing the use of brackets when space is limited. So terms like conseiller with in parentheses after a dash and then R, the ending of the word to mean female or male, would be allowed, but not l'administrateur with a slash, trice, or les agentes with a dots. And I will show it to you here because it's something that you kind of have to see uh, to kind of get not very good at representing that when just speaking about it. I have no idea why this has happened, but let's just go with it. It's right here in the section. So terms like conseillère with the term with the ending in parentheses would be allowed, but not with a slash or using dots here. Dot to say here's what the feminine or the plural. So yes, making a very specific. Um, there we go. I couldn't get that thing to go disappear for some reason. So those types of spellings would not be allowed under these new rules. Many proponents of inclusive writing push back against the use of brackets as it can make other genders seem like a second thought. Quote, from what we saw, there's a lot of confusion, Robert said. Without rules, everyone with good intentions and in good faith are using words that are causing significant problems in the French language. We can't conjugate properly, so we're going to impose some rules. He added that many Quebecers already struggle with French grammar and the government wants to make it more, quote, uniform. The guidelines will only apply to state communications with the public for the time being. That includes all government ministries, organizations, and municipalities. They will also apply to the education network, including CEGEP and universities, and the healthcare system. Robert said the ministers responsible for each sector will legislate accordingly. The guidelines will not affect personnel or internal communications, including addressing students and patients by gender-neutral pronouns. Parti Québécois leader Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon welcomed the move. He told journalists that inclusive language has created, quote, complications and confusion and was imposed without any debate. It's unclear how these rules would affect students and teachers who use gender-neutral pronouns or patients in the healthcare system with an X gender marker on their RAMQ card. That's their provincial health card. Robert said the government will, quote, readjust as necessary. The move comes after Quebec faced strong criticism from the LGBTQ plus community over its bathroom policy in schools and the release of a controversial report by a gender identity committee. Robert insists the rule isn't meant to exclude people based on their gender. Quote, I don't want to exclude anybody. We are open-minded. We want people to be happy. It's important to comfort them. Some people are gender fluid. They are who they are and who they want to be, and this won't change, he said. He stressed Quebec is following countries like France, Belgium, and Switzerland, which have similar rules in place, but trans activist Céleste Trianon isn't convinced. Quote, it's a kind of policy which serves absolutely no purpose except to exclude people and appeal to other people's bigotry, she said, adding she doesn't want to see Quebec follow Alberta's lead on anti-trans legislation. Why should they target inclusive language amongst all things, something which is literally harmless, she said. Trianon accused Quebec of trying to artificially freeze the French language to prevent it from evolving and for imposing censorship. The language has already evolved to create feminine titles for women, she pointed out. She said the government should have other priorities, deficits, the failed Northvolt and SAC-CLIC projects, housing, policing, and is clinging to a divisive policy to try and win its base back. Manon Massé of Québec Solidaire agrees with her. Quote, can someone tell me why the CAQ is so afraid? No one asked for this, she said in an Instagram post. Their days in power are numbered, and this is their priority? Transition Montréal, a new municipal party hoping to be elected in the November election, condemned the CAQ for, quote, politicizing inclusive writing for partisan purposes and imposing it on cities. Quote, it is unfortunately clear that they are afraid of losing all their seats in the next election. They are seeking to distract the Quebec population from the major housing and homelessness crises for which they are responsible, said Transition Montréal leader Craig Sauvé. So, yeah, uh, different approach than what has been going on in New Brunswick, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, but still giving a wink and a nudge. This one based based there. I can see a situation where yes, the language evolving in such a way to include pronouns like yel could create some confusion because nobody knows precisely, when it comes to according adjectives and participles and gender with the subject, how you would do that and what would. But I mean, you can set an agreed upon you can consult with the community and set an agreed upon standard for that rather than just banning that type of communication. And it's not like the Office de langue française du Québec has a problem with doing that because, for example, when new industries emerge, right, when the internet came to pass, you know, uh, everybody was saying browser, 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 and now we're saying furteur in French because they came up with a list of terms that were considered acceptable in French for an emerging new technology that we could all get used to and use instead. They also did it for sports, for example, golf. Everybody would say, il a fait un birdie sur le cinquième trou. He made a birdie on the fifth hole, and now we say oiselet. So um, this is an office that hasn't been afraid of evolving the language and presenting new terms that people could use so that they could speak in French and not have to resort to a whole bunch of anglicisms, especially when there are new technologies, new emerging industries, that type of stuff. But for some reason, on this one, they have a problem coming up with a standard. Okay. Like I said, it's not a devastating change, right? It doesn't go into your lives and affect your relationship with your doctor or how you can be referred to in class in school, whatnot. But and I can see why some people can make a case for saying it could simplify the language. Um, but there were two ways you could go on this one. You could either say, "Yeah, this is just too complicated. We can't handle it, so we won't do it anymore," or realize, "Wow, okay, there's an unintended complication. Let's create a standard. When this happens, we do this." And then just communicate it like you did when you communicated new terminology for sports or emerging technologies, and then it gets adopted. So it is a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, especially when you consider, as the article has pointed out, that there is a bathroom policy in schools and a recently released controversial report by a gender identity committee. That one came out at the end of May. Um, Basically, it would seem there that in this case, when that report came out, according to CTV, um, said according to CTV, the LGBTQ2S plus community said it was not able to review the report on gender identity before its public release, and that went against the government promise that they would. When the report was made public, the committee members noted that they were not specialists in the field of gender identity and, quote, that this is not the reason why we have been entrusted with this mandate, but consulted over 200 people. It was a 292-page document that went over policies related to gender identity in Quebec, including in healthcare, shelters, schools, sports, and prisons, and mainly suggested that further study and consultation among transgender or non-conforming people and experts on contentious issues would be needed. It recommended an Institut National d'Excellence en Santé et en Services Sociaux, which is basically a National Institute of Excellence in Health and Social Services, and an Institut National de Santé Publique du Québec, a National Institute of public health in Quebec, and that should be that these two bodies should be evaluating gender affirming care. The report noted that trans people must have better access to healthcare, especially outside major city centers. And the report also suggested that added separate gender neutral bathrooms in schools, giving financial support to shelters for victims of violence that have adapted services for trans people, and support mixed sports programs. Maintained that Quebec's current rules allowing incarcerated populations to choose a facility that matches their identity, unless barring major security concerns. So it seems that there were some sensitivities towards the community, but it still got some backlash. The Conseil québécois, les lesbiennes, gays, bisexuels et transgenres, so the LGBT Quebec Council, which represents around 80 community organizations in the province, said it had been wary of the committee since it was first announced in December 2023, as it did not include any members of the community. It was created, quote, to help ease social tension at a time when groups opposed to teaching gender identity in schools and pro-LGBTQ2S plus groups clashed in hostile demonstrations. So basically, this is opposition in the sense of nothing about us without us, because nobody was included in there. At first glance, the report relies more on persistent stereotypes than on scientific data and the expertise of community groups, which are clear and consistent on issues like the inclusion of trans women in sports, prisons, toilets, change rooms, and emergency shelters, said the activist group CQ-LGBT. Yeah. So, and that basically, and then it generated a small protest at the National Assembly, denouncing the government for having excluding them from discussions on their rights, dignity, and living conditions. So there you go. That's a little bit of the history there with regard to that. So again, not all out exclusion and all out denial that there are rights and that there are things that the community needs, but just not done in a way that is the most transparent and inclusive. So those are, I'm glad you raised that, Kitlinda, in the chat. Thank you. So that I can bring that additional information. So yeah, kits and cubs, that's a little bit what's going on there. So sad to see that Quebec is giving a little wink and a nudge to that faction, although it could be way worse considering the examples of other provinces. And here we go. You got Kit Sharon go. How are you representing a community without the people in said community? Right? I mean, at this point, this one should be a standard operating procedure. If you're doing something that's going to majorly affect a community, particularly adversely, you might want to include them in the discussion on the ground floor. Maybe. Just seems like the courteous thing to do, seems to me. Go find out from the people that are going to be most affected by your change in law regulation, how it would maybe affect them on the ground, and maybe care enough about them to make sure that the worst doesn't happen. Maybe. All right, kids and cubs. Moving on to other subjects today. The Prime Minister, who had just done 3 or more than that, a certain amount of time from, a certain amount of time in New York City for the UN General Assembly and other such activities, and was back in Canada yesterday for a meeting, to be in question period, and of course, to have a meeting with the leader of Indonesia, which seems to have gone rather well, by the way. And maybe I should actually read in a little bit about what happened with that, because that was it's a big deal. It really is a big deal. But the Prime Minister is on his way to Europe today, and he will be there for a certain number of days. I think it is a 3-day visit, if I am not mistaken, where he will be meeting not only with um, UK leader Keir Starmer, but he will also be meeting with other world leaders here, according to the Canadian press. Prime Minister Mark Carney is heading to the United Kingdom this week to discuss trade ties and other geopolitical issues with world leaders. The Prime Minister's office says Carney will be in London from September 25th to 28th. He's set to meet with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Prime Ministers of Iceland, Australia, Spain, and Denmark. And I'm sure there'll be some interesting things to talk about with Spain and Denmark, considering um, uh, certain potential or certain very suspect or known to be or suspected to be Russian activities happening in within the territory or airspace of those nations. His office says he'll also sit down with business leaders and institutional investors as part of a broader push to advance trade with international partners. Carney and his ministers have worked since coming to office to deepen Canada's international ties, particularly with Europe, in response to the United States' embrace of protectionist tariff policies. The Prime Minister is wrapping up a trip to the United Nations in New York yesterday, and last week was in Mexico to strike a deal advancing economic and security ties with the North American ally. So the Prime Minister, lots of travel. Again, as Pierre Kreliev would call it, lots of activity, but no results. Uh, we'll reserve judgment on the results, but definitely going out there and spending 3 more days on the international circuit, meeting with various partners. But yesterday, it was meeting with the leader of Indonesia at home. And according to the readout from the Prime Minister's office, quote, today in Ottawa, at the invitation of the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, President of the Republic of Indonesia, Prabowo Subianto, undertook a visit to Canada. This was the first meeting of the leaders in Ottawa in 25 years, marking a new chapter in the enduring friendship between Indonesia and Canada, founded on mutual respect, trust, and a shared commitment to building more ambitious and targeted cooperation. The leaders witnessed the signing of the Indonesia-Canada Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, a transformative trade agreement that reflects Canada and Indonesia's shared objective to unlock new opportunities for trade and economic diversification, investment, innovation, and inclusive and sustainable growth. It serves as a platform to strengthen trade and investment ties, expand business opportunities, and foster cooperation in key areas, including food security, critical minerals, renewable energy, and the digital economy. And it's important to note here that Indonesia is the fourth most populous country in the world, with over 200 million citizens, and was not a signatory of the CPTPP agreement. So this is in addition to the trade relationships that we already have. And in a world in which the United States is becoming less and less reliable, again, right, if we look at Mexico, south of us, 130 people, and we look at Indonesia, population of 283.5 million people, both those markets together are larger in terms of number of people than the United States. And therefore, giving us many options to diversify and reroute trade. Of course, it's not going to all happen in one instant. You know, we can lose the Kuzma deal with the United States all in one instance, and we won't be able to redirect all that trade. But over time, again, right, with discipline and a determined moving with determined purpose, that all that trade with the United States could be redirected to other nations, and then some, right? So this is an important deal because uh, rapidly increasing trade with Indonesia could take up a lot of slack in the system relatively quickly. The leaders agreed that the ICA-CEPA, which is this new agreement here, the Indonesia-Canada Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, that's a mouthful, reflects mutual commitment to opening trade in accordance with the rule of law and in respect for internationally agreed trade rules. This is essential to uphold openness and predictability in global trade, maintain global economic stability, and safeguard supply chain resilience. Um, Donald Trump, if you're paying attention. The Prime Minister and President agreed that joint trade facilitation on prime agricultural commodities, including agri-food, can further strengthen mutually beneficial cooperation in support of Indonesia's food security agenda and sustainable two-way trade. They underlined the importance of supporting small, medium enterprises and women entrepreneurs, expanding access to finance and facilitating their participation in global value change. The leaders noted the importance of broad development cooperation, which will support implementation of the CEPA, explore new innovative programming to strengthen our collaboration as reliable trading partners, and continue to include women's empowerment and climate change as key priorities. In that light, Canada also welcomes Indonesia's support for the Canada-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement, as well as supports Indonesia's interest to accede to the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement through Trans-Pacific Partnership and Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. So it looks like Indonesia does want to join the CPTPP eventually. So we've got a free trade with them deal before they join the CPTPP. And it looks here, according to this, that Canada is looking to establish a free trade agreement with the ASEAN nations, and that Indonesia is indeed support of that. Here, kits and cubs, I'm just going to take a look at the ASEAN nations and the CPTPP nations and compare them to see if there's any new countries with whom we would have free trade agreements with this new. If we had a trade agreement with the ASEAN nations. So the CPP member countries are Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, and Vietnam. All right. And now I'm looking at the ASEAN nations. Brunei. So Brunei is covered by both. Cambodia, which would be a nation with which we do not have a free trade agreement. Indonesia, which we do, but not as part of the CPTPP. Laos, which we do not. Malaysia, which we do with the CPTPP. Yes, we do. The Philippines, which we do not have one with, and I'm surprised about that because we have a deep economic and foreign aid cooperation with the Philippines for a long time, but don't have a free trade agreement with them. So that would be included. Singapore, which is included in the TPP, and then Thailand, which is not, and Vietnam, which is. So we would be adding Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, the Philippines, and Thailand as nations with which we would have free trade agreements if we were able to sign that one with the ASEAN nations. So that is very interesting as well, which, again, remember that trade is also legal architecture and mechanisms and all that kind of stuff, and all that stuff can be negotiated successfully. Then when we have a shock of some kind, it does make it much easier for us to be able to reroute our goods because all that work has already been done. Of course, none of that means that all the individual company to company networking has been done in order to allow that, but at least the legal framework does exist. So there you go, kits and cubs. Woohoo! Um, good deals going on. This is very good stuff. Um, the joint statement, and clearly this was a serious meeting because sometimes I read readouts and they're like just 3 or 4 lines. This has a lot of stuff in it. So this was a very serious discussion. But of course, they were signing the whole document officially. So it was a big deal. Canada supports Indonesia's commitment to reach net zero by 2060 and welcomes its desire to integrate clean technologies and new and renewable energy sources into its energy mix. The leaders reaffirmed their shared attachment to promoting and safeguarding peace and addressing global issues and reiterated their shared commitment to advancing defense and security cooperation, as demonstrated by the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding on cooperative activities in the field of defense, which complements the previously signed Memorandum of Understanding on military cooperation. Prime Minister Carney and President Prabowo agreed to support the development of their defense industries, acknowledging the importance of the Indo-Defense Expo and Canada's Global Defense and Security Trade Show, CANSEC. The Indonesia-Canada Defense Dialogue, an ongoing collaboration under the Military Training and Cooperation Program, complemented by signature training events such as the Super Garuda Shield and multilateral naval exercise Komodo. Sorry, I'm going to have a little bit of water to make my beaver a little moist. There we go. To guide future engagement, the leaders also mandated their foreign ministers to finalize as soon as possible a 2026 to 2029 Canada-Indonesia Plan of Action to build on the two countries' shared commitment as pluralistic democracies to deliver meaningful and lasting benefits for the people of both countries. This plan of action will provide a roadmap for a strategic, forward-looking, and outcome-oriented cooperation across the three main pillars: economic partnership, defense and political cooperation, and people-to-people ties. The leaders discussed greater ease of travel between the citizens of the two countries to strengthen people-to-people ties, education, tourism, and business exchanges by, in part, making travel easier, faster, and safer. The leaders also exchanged views on regional and global issues. Canada reaffirmed its support for ASEAN's centrality as a driving force in sustaining an open, transparent, and inclusive regional architecture in line with the ASEAN Charter and international law. And I'm wondering here, when they're talking about making travel easier, faster, and safer, if that might have something to do, if there are any visas in place that are required for travel, that maybe that requirement would be removed, such things, things of that sort. They expressed deep concern over the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza and the worsening situation in the West Bank, and reaffirmed the urgency of achieving a just, comprehensive, and lasting peace based on a two-state solution, and welcomed opportunities to cooperate on humanitarian assistance and reconstruction efforts. Indonesia welcomes Canada's official recognition of the Palestinian statehood. And on that front, kits and cubs, Italy announced yesterday that it too would be recognizing Palestinian statehood, and that makes 4 of the G7 nations now doing so. So still waiting on an official word from Germany, Japan, and trying to remember off the top of, yes, and obviously the United States, that probably won't, most likely won't. But so 4 of the 6 that are eligible to be doing that, assuming that the U.S. remains in the bag for Israel, have done it so far. Prime Minister Carney and President Prabowo also welcomed today's agreement between Export Development Canada and the Indonesia Investment Authority to explore cooperation in sectors such as infrastructure, clean tech and renewable energy, and agri-food, as well as today's agreement between the Business Council of Canada and the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The leaders further welcomed the potential to expand partnership and investment collaboration between sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, as well as develop financed institutions and other institutional investors. These agreements will further deepen trade and investment and become catalysts for opening new and deeper partnerships with concrete, lasting benefits for their peoples. This is fantastic news here. According to Global News, is being defined as game-changing. Dylan Robertson from the Canadian Press reports Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto has signed new agreements on trade and defense cooperation with Prime Minister Mark Carney on Parliament Hill. The trade deal is comprehensive, meaning it opens up trade in multiple industries with the world's 4th most populous country. Carney said the game-changing agreement is the first ever bilateral trade pact signed with a member of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Once it's fully implemented, it means that over 95% of the tariffs on Canada's current exports to Indonesia will be reduced or eliminated, he told reporters in Ottawa. Quote, they will all be at preferential rates, making our exports obviously far more competitive. The Prime Minister also announced a new defense cooperation agreement that will deepen our collaboration on maritime security, cyber defense, peacekeeping, and military education. Quote, this is critical for Canada as part of our Indo-Pacific strategy, and it sends a strong signal to the world that Canada and Indonesia are committed to working together for peace and stability in the region and beyond. Last November, both countries announced they had finished trade negotiations that started in 2021. Indonesia is looking to Canada for resources and for potential work on critical minerals and nuclear energy technology. Indonesia's population of 280 million people is younger than most, and the country has been trying to wean itself off the carbon economy as it copes with threats to its biodiversity. Subianto says Canada is a, quote, very responsible, mature, leading power of the West, but also one that has, quote, great empathy for the concerns of developing nations. Canada has increased its engagements with ASEAN in recent years on economic and security measures in a bid to boost its presence in the Indo-Pacific and counter China's influence. And with regard to that military cooperation memorandum of understanding with Indonesia's armed forces, according to a news release by National Defense, it says the Chief of Defense Staff, General Jenny Carignan, signed a military cooperation memorandum of understanding with the Tentara Nasional Indonesia, TNI, and the Indonesian National Armed Forces. This is a significant step forward for Canada's bilateral defense partnership with Indonesia and demonstrates Canada's long-term commitment to the Indo-Pacific region. This new arrangement between the Canadian Armed Forces and the TNI strengthens the military partnerships between both nations and will increase collaboration in areas of maritime security, bilateral and multilateral exercises, and capacity building, among others. The positive impact of this arrangement can already be seen in the region through the CAF's participation in Exercise Super Garada Shield 2025. This year will see the largest Canadian Armed Forces contingent participating in the exercise, with members currently deployed on Operation Horizon. This arrangement will also continue to build on our highly successful partnership under the Military Training and Cooperation Program, in which over 700 TNI members have participated since Indonesia joined in 2008. The signing of this arrangement further strengthens our defense partnerships with Indonesia, an influential partner in the region and leading member of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN. Through Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy, we will continue to increase our defense and security cooperation with ASEAN member states and work with our allies and partners to ensure a strong defense presence in the region. As a Pacific nation, the security and stability of the broader Indo-Pacific region is vital to Canada's future and global stability. Canada is and will continue to be an active, reliable, and predictable partner in the region. And the Chief of Defense Staff is quoted as saying, formalizing our military cooperation with a key Indo-Pacific partner like Indonesia is vital to strengthening Canada's ability to promote peace and stability in the region. By enhancing our interoperability with the Tentara Nasional Indonesia, we ensure that the Canadian Armed Forces remain ready to uphold international law and defend Canadian sovereignty. And H.E. Dutton, who's the ambassador to the Republic of Indonesia, states Canada is honored to advance our longstanding partnership with Indonesia through our new military cooperation memorandum of understanding. This milestone underscores our shared commitment to maritime security, regional stability, and capacity building. Guided by Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy, we will continue working closely with Indonesia and ASEAN partners to strengthen peace, security, and resilience across the region. There we go. And as a little note on the side, as part of Canada's strategic partnership with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, we hold observer status for 2 ASEAN Defense Ministers meeting plus ADMMM plus, export working groups, and 1 for humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, and 1 on maritime security. Observer status for both working groups is for the 2024 to 2027 cycle. So there we go. Lots of developments with a trade partner that is sure to become much more significant to us as the days and months and years go by, particularly since we are adjusting with what the United States is throwing our way. All right, kids and cubs, I believe that is all that I have for you today. There we go. Let's see if there's anything else here on the radar. Just taking a look here. No, not really. Oh, yes. Later this morning, former New Democrat MP Peter Julian and Matthew Green, both of them who lost their respective seats in New Westminster, Burnaby, BC, and Hamilton in the last election, will hit the West Block Press Theatre to make what the notice is billing as an important announcement at 11:30 a.m. So I'm wondering if one of them too are throwing their hat into the ring for the NDP leadership and has the other one as a sponsor or a backer. But that should be interesting to see what it is that they have planned here. Other things going on today. Something called All In 2025, which is a 2-day meetup that builds itself as the largest artificial intelligence event in Canada, got underway yesterday. Artificial Intelligence Minister Evan Solomon, uh, who is there, and his second day at the summit will include an on-stage panel discussion on accelerating enterprise adoption of AI at 3:30 p.m. if you're interested in that. And according to the program, Industry Minister Melanie Joly is booked for a kiosk tour at 3:15 before hitting the stage during the closing session later this afternoon at 4:20. So for people who are interested in AI, that is happening as well. All right, kids and cubs, that is the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. It really, really matters to us and makes us happy when you do, especially when you share a little bit of yourself, why it is that the content resonated with you or that you just particularly recommended. So thank you so much for that. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like us to help you, we are definitely willing and able to do that because let's say you're on the go and you're not able to watch the show with the best damn fam in all of podcasting, either live or at your own convenience. Well, don't worry because Kit the Ray Girl has hooked you up. If you scan that QR code that just appeared, or if you go to our pod page, podpage.com/the true north eager beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. When you go there and click subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, we become portable. You're on the go. Pick us up, put us in your ears. That way you can take on the day and remain informed. Thanks, Ray Girl, for making that possible. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us, we could definitely use some help. How about traveling on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page where Kits, Cassie, and Elaine are waiting for you and beckoning for you to click on our buttons as 25,500 of you have so far. We just keep on growing. Thank you so very much to everyone who's subscribing. It means the world to us. But please go there. Also like and share. And as Kit Elaine says, remember, kids and cubs, if you smash now, you don't have to remember to do it before you go. Smashing with our buttons helps us with the algorithm. Plus, it makes us a little bit of happy. So thank you so much for that. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us in other ways, we do incur some costs to bring this show to you, and we would definitely love your help. We are hoping that this year is the year that we break even, and if we do, it will be because of you and your repeated enthusiastic expressions of support, either through a donation through the super chat on our YouTube page, or by buying a membership, or by making a donation to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund, which you can find at our coffee page. Because every day we fight the scourge that is dry beaver. Why? Well, as Kids Saucy likes to say, because a moist beaver is a very happy beaver. And I can vouch. So, kids and cubs, moisten me with a beautiful expression of enthusiastic encouragement via our coffee page. That QR code that just appeared will bring you there, or coffeeko-fi.com/eagerbeaver is the way to do it. We very much appreciate your support, and it seems that we have somebody to thank because it seems that our dear friend and person who opens all our shows, Mateo, sent us a little something. It says, for Mr. Beaver and Mr. Bear. Well, thank you, Mateo. We really appreciate that. And thank you, family, as well. That's very kind of you. And I can promise you that Mr. Beaver and Mr. Bear are going to put it to very, very, very good use. You are so kind. Thank you, Mateo. Big hug for you. There you go. From me and also from Mr. Bear. Oh, what a delightful, delightful, delightful young man Mateo is. I'm always cheering for him. Always cheering for him. All right, kids and cubs. Let's see. Where are we? Because democracy is something that you do. Hey, hey, hey. Oh, I forgot. wait a minute. If you do want to support us, but you're doing the Buy Canadian thing, we can hook you up there too. A bank to bank transfer, True North Eager Beaver at gmail.com is our email address. Send us a little something there. That way, your transaction remains 100% Canadian. None of it goes to any US CE tech bro. Ugh. And of course, we get 100% of your donation so we can do more with it. Thank you very much. Now, if you're not able to contribute financially, remember the gifts of your attention and participation are the ones that matter the most to us. TrueNorthEagerBeaver at gmail.com. That same email address is where you can write to us to let us know what you think about the show, offer some guest suggestions. If you would like to advertise with us, particularly if you're a community group, we definitely have very advantageous rates for you if you need to get the word out to a group of citizens that are definitely engaged and are just eager to support Canadian enterprises and Canadian groups who are doing good work out there. So please do write to us. We really appreciate it. All right. Because democracy is something that you do, forever-canadian.ca is where you go if you are an Albertan who wants Alberta to remain in Canada. Find out where your signature pop-up location is. Donate to the organization so it could do its work. Sign up to be a canvasser. We're coming to the end of one signature period, but we'll have another one coming up in October. And, 294,000 signatures are needed. So let's go way beyond that and make it very clear that we're not messing around. And thank you to Mr. Thomas Lukasik, who is doing such good work leading that organization, but to everybody else in that organization too, that has decided to do democracy. They've gotten up, they put their skin in the game, and that's what we ask, and that's what we hope that more and more people do. And it's nice to see it happening in real time. Kits and Cubs. Also, remember, petition if you want a little bit more honesty in our politics and would like there to be some teeth to some regulations. When that does not happen, then please go to ourcommons.ca, and I'm going to put it in the chat yet again today. There you go. Look for petition E-6679, and that one, if you sign it, hopefully we'll get the attention of our elected officials, and they will choose to do something about that. Over 22,000 signatures at present on that petition, and that warms my heart when I see the number grow. All right. And let's see. Is there anything else? Oh, yes. Provincial election in Newfoundland and Labrador. I need to get some news from that to bring you an update to see what's going on there soon. So maybe have some of that for you tomorrow. But yes, Newfoundland and Labrador. Remember, friends don't allow friends to do democracy alone. So please plan your vote. Very important that you do that. The vote is on October 14th, and I would assume that early voting and that type of stuff is about to happen soon. And of course, if you want to help, also please, Kids and Cubs, call your local polling or electoral body and see whether or not they would need help, because that is something that I recommend everybody do at least once in their lifetime. It's very, very important. Remember, if you in that Newfoundland election, if you would like to vote by mail, if you want a special ballot, applications are open until October 2nd at 8 p.m., half an hour earlier in most of Labrador. Go to Elections Newfoundland and Labrador, elections.gov.nl.ca, in order to find that out. And it says here on the website, remember that the district office in St. George's Humber is closed Thursday, September 25th due to construction. Regular hours will resume Friday, September 26th. So there you go, Kids and Cubs. Do democracy. It's very, very important, especially on the rock, right? Okay. What else do we have? I guess that's it. Words of wisdom, I guess. Kids and Cubs, keep dancing. Keep dancing. Remember, it is only the people who do not hear the music who believe the dancers to be mad. Always hear the music, always be dancing. It's it's the secret to happy life. It's true. Works for me anyway. Kids and cubs, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, if you would, my dear little kitties, on the count of three, would you please say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on one, two, three. Oh, my word. That is so well done. Everybody did it at exactly the same time. How can I say no when you ask so nicely and so simultaneously? I must comply. I just must. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. Kids and Cubs, gonna have a little bit of news Canadians who make us proud and a little bit about love, 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 love. Our Canadian tennis players had a bit of a rougher day yesterday at the tournament. Bianca Andreescu did a good job trying to come back in the second set, brought it to a tiebreaker after trailing, but was not able to win her match. Ariana Arsenault lost her match as well. So did BT George. Alexandra Vagramov did win hers, however, which is good. Gabrielle Diallo was in tough against the number 5 in the word Taylor Fritz, and pushed it, went all the way to a tiebreak in the third end, but lost his match 7-3. And Denis Shapovalov in his first match since getting married, probably still feeling the good vibes from marriage, and unfortunately lost that match. So did Liam Drexel, lost his doubles match. Cleve Harper did win his doubles, so that's good. And Kayla Cross won her singles match in Templeton, California, whereas Cadence Brace lost her match. So a very mixed bag for Canadian tennis players. However, since we are talking about love a little bit, as we mentioned, Denis Shapovalov wasn't the only one who got married, and hopefully we'll have some images of that coming soon. But Felix Auger-Aliassime did, and it seems that Vogue was there. And this is the image that they have there. Miss him looking very, very, very dapper in Dior, and I cannot remember who his wife or his bride, Nina Galbi, is wearing here in this image. And Galbi is also an athlete, so they both share that she's an equestrian athlete, and it. Just if you, because we love love here, it starts here. Tennis player Felix Auger-Aliassime first noticed equestrian Nina Aliassime from afar during one of his tournaments in March 2019. Quote, "When I couldn't shake the thought of her, I felt strongly compelled to meet her before leaving the city if I wanted to leave with no regrets," he remembers. "I decided to send her a message asking if we could go for a dinner during the tournament and was quite relieved when she was open to the idea. A couple of days later, they went on their first date. Quote, without sounding cliche, it was truly love at first sight," the Canadian tennis pro says, of falling head over heels for Nina, who lives in the US, was born but was born to a Croatian mother and of a Moroccan father. Quote, after 2 hours, I told her this was the start of a long and beautiful future together, and within days we both knew that we wanted to marry. I think that sums up our relationship quite well. Never a sliver of doubt, instant comfortability, a young and innocent honesty, and love that never stopped growing from the moment we laid eyes on each other. They got engaged in November 2024 during a vacation to the Seychelles. Quote, while relaxing outside on our balcony together, I asked her to grab my notebook from inside our room, Felix recalls. What was supposed to be my notebook was actually a letter from me to her, a letter that dated back to May 5th, 2019, written a month and a half after our very first meeting. It was a letter that I had kept through all of the years to one day show her just how confident I was that we'd still be together years later. Oh. As she came back onto the balcony, Felix was waiting with the ring. It was a beautiful and intimate moment that we had looked forward to for years, and I couldn't have dreamt of it being more magical than it was, he says. The rest of our evening felt it was like out of a movie as we went straight to a sunset picnic at the top of the island. As the day turned to night, they moved to the beach for barbecue and called their family and friends to share their happy news. I love, and Felix is such a romantic. Oh my God. He already knew and had written a letter back then. And then he got to show it to her on the date of their engagement because he was so sure that she was the one. Everybody, find yourself someone who'll love you like Felix loves Nina. All right, kits and cubs, I am off. Amour et bisous, and we will see you tomorrow. And with that, like magic, I am gone.